And welcome to the June 7th meeting of the governing body. I call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilman, I'm sorry. I'm used to all these empty seats around here. I have to reacclimate myself. Help me out here.
Cal.
Or not, Brent Kell, thank you. People coming and going. And put a name tag on people. Anyway, if you'll pay your attention to Councilman Brett Kell, he'll provide the invocation. Stand as you are able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight's invocation is to be presented by Mike Siebert. Mike has spent 25 years in full-time ministry with Youth for Christ. Now he works for the state of Kansas along with his wife, Sandy. He has two sons. One is a Washburn grad, and the other one's a Kansas State grad. Mike is an elder at Grace Bible Church, east of 37th and Croco.
Mr. Mayor, sometimes we all forget names.
I know.
Even the ones that, are right beside us. So anyway, let's pray. Lord Jesus, I thank you for the opportunity to be here before the governing board of the city of Topeka. Father, we all come humbly. We're all mere humans, and there's no way that we can conduct business without your wisdom and your guidance. Father, I pray for humility on behalf of each of these people that are in leadership. Pray the same for those who have concerns here within the hall and even online. Father, I pray that you would guide and direct the time that this meeting goes on, that the accomplishments would be because you had your hand in it, and we can point to you and thank you. And we'll praise you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike.
And thank you, Councilman Brett Kell. Sorry, if I repeat it, I'll remember it. Okay, we'll move on now to the roll call, if the clerk would read, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Valdivia Acala. Ortiz. Emerson.
Here.
Kale.
Here.
Nager. Here. Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Lesser.
Here.
We have 8 present.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 2, appointments, if the clerk would read.
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Carmen Romero Nicholas to the Topeka Human Relations Commissions to fill an expired term ending June 7, 2024.
Okay, we've heard the request to appoint Carmen Romero Nicholas. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move approval.
Oh, didn't see. You're all the way over in London, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for
Midnight here.
attending. Yeah. Have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Dobler. If you'll call the roll vote, please.
Council members Emerson.
Yes.
Kale.
Yes.
Dobler. No, I'm sorry, Nager.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dobler.
Yes.
Duncan.
Yes.
Lesser.
Yes.
And Hiller.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Nichols, are you, thank you for standing and thank you for stepping forward and serving on the Human Relations Commission. Romero Nichols, okay. Thank you. Move on to item number 3, presentations, if the clerk would read.
The first presentation we have is the City of Topeka Employee Survey.
Mr. City Manager?
Mayor and Governor Bobby, like I informed you a while back, we did a employee climate survey, and we thought the timing was good because we just recently appointed new fire chief, new police chief, And we're in the process of looking for a city manager, and we thought timing was pretty good to gauge the climate of our employees. And so at this time, I'll turn it over to Ryan, who will, if you remember, he did the citizen survey for us back about a year ago,
Yeah,
give or take.
somewhere around
So
there. Yeah.
with
Yeah,
that,
feels like a year, right? COVID seems to have elongated everything. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you again to Mr. Cochran. Again, throughout this process, Mr. Cochran and Mr. Younger were a pleasure to work with, and I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. So this time, we're going to go pretty fast through some of these results, kind of overall findings of the employee survey. As most of you probably remember, I'm Ryan Murray with ETC Institute. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Research there. I handle almost all of our employee satisfaction surveys, almost all for municipalities, and we've also done the state of Kansas entirely. So we've got a lot of experience, and I like to hold that kind of under my belt. ETC Institute, again, is really the national leader in market research for local government organizations. And there we go. So the purpose of the employee survey is similar to that of the community survey. It's really an objective assessment of satisfaction with employment at the city. But beyond that, it's kind of a litmus test of the ratings that we're getting based on agreements. So we're asking not residents, but employees to rate their level of agreement with various statements regarding employee attitudes. So we determine priorities based on those results using the same important satisfaction analysis similarly to the community survey. However, that was kind of an importance agreement analysis, and I'll walk you through that. We also wanted to determine what's going to have the greatest impact on overall satisfaction with employment at the city. We did that using some gap analysis, so understanding how respondents who are satisfied compared to those who are dissatisfied with various levels of agreements. For all of the statements that were asked, it gives us an idea of which items are maybe going to have the greatest impact on overall satisfaction. It was a really short 3-page survey. We always try to encourage shorter surveys for this particular exercise, and it utilized specific design features such as the community satisfaction survey in order to ensure that we had that ability to run the analysis for you. It was primarily conducted online, but we did have paper copies mailed to the city. Those were available for city staff who don't have regular access to email. All employees were eligible to participate, including council. We had 601 completed surveys with a response rate of 52%, which is actually extremely strong. What I usually tell folks at the beginning of the onset is that we'll be lucky if we get to 30. I'm aiming for 40, and 50 is kind of the sky. And so we got to 50% response rate here, and as you can see the response rates on your screen for each one of the city departments here. So pretty strong responses from just about every single department. Some of those departments are a little bit smaller, as you see city manager up at the top, 23%, but to get 3 out of that 13 is actually really strong for that particular exercise. So we did really well in terms of representation of our city departments, and we also did really well in some of those hard areas, which is police. Those folks are just extremely busy. I saw Chief in here earlier. I'm sure he can attest how busy those guys are. Taking their time out of the day to conduct or to actually participate in the survey is actually a really big deal for those folks. In summary, if you kind of leave with nothing else from this presentation, overall, your employees think that this city's a really good employer. About 3/4 of folks indicated they think the city's a good employer just generally when you straight out ask that question, yes, no. Another 3/4 indicated that they're proud to work for the city of Topeka. I think in conjunction with bullet number 2 is actually really great. So we would want to see some alignment there, but we have about 2/3 of employees indicating they recommend employment at the city. Not only do they think you're a good employer, you're taking care of them through the pandemic, they're proud to work here, but not only that, 2/3 of them would also recommend this employment to other people. So that's kind of the I own my employment here at the city. I'm proud of my employment at the city. I think you should also be a city employee, which is a really strong message to make. We did, based on the design of the survey, develop 3 priorities for improvement. We'll walk through those quickly here, and then I'll show you the analysis behind that. We want to make sure that employees feel like they're given the ability to improve their talents and abilities. So that's professional development, making sure job goals or career goals are set for folks, ensuring employees are adequately recognized for the work they do. So employee recognition is usually the driving force with satisfaction in terms of generalized overall satisfaction with employment. And we want to make sure that employees have that information that they need to do their job in an effective manner. So what we're really looking at here is autonomy in their positions, making sure that their voices are heard, that they have a feedback loop that works for them, that they can tell supervisors, hey, here's a better way of doing this. Could you please let me try that better way of attempting something? And then they want to make sure they have that interdepartmental communication. So that, Public Works is doing something that's impacting utilities, they want to make sure that they're kind of aware of all of those things at the same time. So when we talk about importance agreement analysis, it's really the same situation that we looked at in our community satisfaction survey, where we're rating the agreements of particular overall statements, and then we're asking employees to understand or to indicate, which of those statements are really most important to them or which ones should receive the most emphasis. What we found is that communication, strategic direction, employee recognition, with those statements not bolded, are the ones that are going to have the greatest impact. So if we can find the causality of the reasons for the strongly disagree or disagree statements there, and we can start to work towards those. And in the analysis we delivered in the reporting, you can kind of feed through some of the analysis to understand which items directly are going to have an impact on these three major categories. These are also the three most important categories for improvement over the next couple of years by kind of a large margin. Now we have professional development right there towards the bottom at 50%, right in the middle. But the three at the top, again, are going to have the greatest impact on overall satisfaction with the city. So what we've done in our reporting that we've delivered is really spelled out an action plan or a developable action plan for city usage, which basically accounts for all of those generalized agreement statements, telling us which ones, again, are going to have the greatest impact on overall satisfaction, and we see this here. So strategic and direction, employee recognition, and ensuring employees are informed about the things they need to do their jobs are going to be those greatest items. Work environment and culture, we're doing very well with terms of agreement there, and it's lesser importance than the other items rated on the survey. One of the other major features of the survey was a group of questions related to childcare, so I wanted to make sure I touched on that. About 2/3 of your workforce don't seem to have a need for this, and we have a little bit extra on there as well. So about 70%, 80% of folks just don't really have a need. But 1 in 5 of your employees indicated they would be interested in offering childcare services as part of city benefits. We asked respondents to indicate the age of those children needing childcare to get a little bit more feedback from folks before we dig in a little bit deeper there, and we can kind of see the breakdown of those children's ages and the time needing that childcare service as well. Lastly, we asked those respondents who indicated they did have a need for the service, again, about 1 in 5 or about 20% of our respondents. 99% of that 20% of our respondents indicated drop-off daycare would be of great assistance to them. So that was one of the major features of the survey that doesn't really play into the analysis that we wanted to make sure to include. And when we talk about next steps, what we want to do is make sure that what we're doing now is sharing the employee survey results with everybody at the city. We want to develop those strategies to make sure we're combating some of those areas that are going to have the greatest impact on satisfaction, making sure we're working on those. Utilize the gap analysis, which is found in the report, to really dig deep and find those really tiny items that are going to start to move the needle there. And then we want to develop a communication plan with employees to make sure that they're aware that leadership at the city has taken note, and now we're going to have an action plan that we're actually going to try to implement here. What we also recommend, because we've seen it time and time again, is that we should hold ourselves accountable by suggesting that another survey be conducted in 2 years. And if we hold ourselves to that, we're holding ourselves to the action plan, and we can see improvement in a couple of years by doing another survey with folks. With that, I'll take any questions regarding methodology, suggested resources, or anything like that.
Thank you. Councilman Kell.
Now, is there any way to get the respondents number up? Because, I look at it, like you said, that the police department and the officers are busy.
Yeah.
That survey may be more done by the office personnel rather than the road officers.
Yeah.
And so in essence, they may not be getting their voices heard in a survey like this, and their wants and needs. So is there any way to make sure the next time this comes around to get more 75% plus?
Yeah.
I know there's always going to be 1 or 2 people that don't want to do it, but
there's always going to be a contingent that don't want to do it. I think what's going to really boost response rates next time is seeing action from the original survey. So if employees see action taken as a part of these next steps, where another community, I just recently did this for Lee Summit, one of the biggest barriers to satisfaction was the fact that they didn't believe that the results of the survey would be acted upon. So we want to make sure we're acting upon the results, showing employees what we're doing. Hopefully that will drive participation. The other way to drive participation is really by incentives, which can be difficult. You can kind of derive or develop some incentives. Another client of mine has kind of a prize drawing. Everybody that entered the survey is going out to a secondary link to provide their contact information. So they're separate from their results, so we can't find back who gave dissatisfied remarks or not. And what they're going to do is basically like door prizes, TVs, PlayStations, things like that for city employees. The thing that I've really found the most useful is to pit department directors against one another. and say, hey, Steve, your department's sitting at a 30% response rate. We've got 50% over here. We really need to see those numbers boosted. And what I've actually found is that type of incentive among those department directors really has boosted responses the most. I think 75% is a fantastic goal, but 50% is actually a really phenomenal response rate for this type of exercise, especially given you've got almost 1,200 employees here at the city. So margin of error on these results is super slim, but the incentives really go a long way. But really that incentive of those directors to kind of beat out other groups is, I think, the driving factor in boosting responses sometimes.
Now, are those results, like you brought up department heads, are they given to the department heads? 'Cause I'm going off my experience working at the VA, and we're up in the 80 percentile, almost 90 percentile on response.
Yeah.
And like you said, our supervisor is very good about, hey, make sure you get this done.
Yeah.
But he always gets a breakdown, and they can go over it with us.
Yep.
And then he can learn from it himself also, so,
Yes. So-
then that way it kind of opens up that
Yep.
communication, aspect.
Exactly. So for those larger departments, I'd be happy to speak with those department directors who are interested in that, and I can run those cross tabulations, feeding out or weeding out some of those police responses only or fire responses only. Some of the smaller departments just have too few responses to kind of analyze separately. So what we do with the smaller departments is kind of lump those together in any analysis. But yes, I'd be happy to speak with Mr. Cochran and Mr. Younger about any additional analysis that might like to happen. And even if that's just tabular runs of those results by department, that's something really easy that we can handle.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. City Manager?
Councilman, the survey has been shared with the department heads, actually, about a week before the governing body got it. And they were asked to provide input and any feedback that they may have, so we can start working on some of those things. And on a couple of those departments where the response was low, and talking to employees just in general, we have a lot of new employees with the city of Topeka. And a lot of those employees didn't feel they'd been here long enough to be able to provide useful information. So that does account for some of it. But we were excited when we had 50% turnout. So.
Definitely strong. It's great. I'd love to talk to whoever administers the internal VA survey. But is it internally conducted?
I'm not sure, I can't remember if it's internal, but we do have like incentives, like, we could do a situation where, someone gets, pie of the mayor or something like that,
Exactly.
If you hit a certain mark, or like you said, door prizes that they can, earn to win, but,
Yeah.
they've done different things over the years, and they're always shooting for that next
Yes.
increment
Yeah.
higher every year.
Yeah.
And I do get what you're saying, Mr. City Manager, on that, because I felt the first time it came around with me, I was only been there 3 months, and I think I just went neutral down the whole entire thing, just because I didn't feel like I'd been there long enough to have an opinion on matters.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely an impact. I do believe that 52%, while you would suggest that's low, that's a pretty good response rate for this type of exercise. The incentives could help, but I think will go a long way is action. So if you roll this out to employees with the understanding, we've taken note, now here are some steps that we're going to take, I think that can really push the needle as well next time.
Further questions? Well, thank you for the information. I really appreciate it. I like the emphasis on the things that we can improve on. I do like your comments with regards to making sure that we follow through with it and let the employees know what we're doing rather than just initiate without letting them know where we are. And another suggestion is, rather than the pie on the mayor, we could shave Mr. Kell's eyebrows off, and that might be just as much fun.
Now you remember that.
Yes, those types of incentives are great. I'll mark those in the margins on the survey, Mr. Cochran, so next time around, we'll make sure that we've got that incentive in there.
Thank you very much for
Thank
the
you so much, Mayor.
presentation.
Thank you, council. Have a great evening.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you, Mr. Cochran.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you read for the second presentation, please?
We have the American Medical Response AMR update.
City Manager?
Mayor, governing body, we asked Mr. Anthram with AMR to come tonight to give a presentation, just basically an overview where AMR, some of the services that they are providing, new services that they will be providing to the community, and just we had some council members that had asked for it, so tonight, Mr. Antrim will present, so I'll turn it over to you, John.
All right, thank you. Mayor, governing body, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. City manager, I know this is something that we've been wanting to do for a while. While we're contracted with the county, just having the open line of communication with the city where we serve, a majority of our service happens, is a good thing. So with me today, in case there's any data questions, Nelson Castile's back there in the black. He's our ambulance compliance officer. He's the one that, he's the enforcer to make sure that we're doing what's required in our contract. So I'm going to speed through this as quickly as possible while hitting some major high points. So I know all of you have the presentation in your agenda, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but this is kind of our footprint within the state of Kansas, and this footprint continues to grow almost on a daily basis with new 911 contracts popping up across the state of Kansas. So kind of history of EMS within the city of Topeka and Shawnee County. We've been private or third party for many, many years. Prior to 1981, it was provided by both hospitals. And in 1983 is when Medevac Mid-America, which is the company that we purchased, became the first private contractor to provide ambulance service here in Shawnee County. Tom Little and Group ran that service. Surprisingly, we still have some employees that work for them still working for us today. AMR purchased Medevac Mid-America in June of 1994, and we've continued our service through this time. And we're proud to say that during this entire service time from Medevac to AMR, we've had 0 contractual compliance violations. So our current contract, how did we get to where we are today? Well, there was an RFP selection committee that was put together. This is some of the members and representation that was on that committee. Topeka Fire had representation, Rural Fire, Shawnee County, both health systems here in Topeka, as well as the Sheriff's Office. Some of the contract highlights, we receive a $300,000 subsidy from the county. That's all we receive as far as taxpayer dollars to provide the service here in Shawnee County. That $300,000 subsidy is used to offset the low pay, no pay groups within the city of Topeka and Shawnee County. On average, I would say we roughly write off approximately $3.5 to $4 million of uncompensated care annually providing the service here. Our current contract, we entered in January 2017, and January 1st of this year, we received a 5-year extension. So that runs through December 31st of 2026. Another highlight that we provide is the Unified Medical Director. We provide the medical director for all fire and first responder services at our expense. This was a huge improvement to our system. Prior to doing this, we had the problem of Topeka Fire had protocols, AMR had protocols, Shawnee Heights Fire had protocols, and when we got together, they didn't always mesh. So having the joint unified medical director is a big, big win for us. Another thing that we offer is tuition assistance. We offer $10,000 of tuition assistance for area first responders. I know a couple of times Topeka Fire has utilized this to attend some classes to improve EMS services that they provide as well. We also offer free continuing education for those first responders that have medical certifications that have to be renewed through the state as part of our contract. We have to do 2 of those classes a month to provide that service. Disposable medical exchange, we allow for one-on-one exchange. If Topeka Fire arrives on scene first and uses something that's on the list, we then supply it back to them so that they can get back in service and go about their day. There is a policy that's been put in place by the Ambulance Advisory Board that outlines what that process is. In the event that, because of national supply chain shortages and everything that we're all facing everywhere, an item is back ordered, then we have a procedure in place for them to get that filled on the backside. And really, I'm just I'll skip over the rest of this. I know all of it's inside of your packet just for time. So the meat and potatoes here. So our current contract, and you see on the map here, the pink is Zone 1. That pretty much encompasses the entire city of Topeka except for the southern half of it, as well as some Mission Township, Soldier, and Shawnee Heights. So our contractual required response times for emergency calls in Zone 1 is 9 minutes, and our contractual non-emergency response time is Zone 1 is 14 minutes. I've put some data and statistics that I received from the compliance officer up here that kind of discusses our average response times over the past several years. 2021 I did not get added, but the average response time for Zone 1 was 6 minutes and 10 seconds within Zone 1. Our annual compliance rate for our contract, by contract, we only have to be 80% compliant to keep Nelson happy. We only have to hit that 80% mark, but as you can see, we've kind of fluctuated in that 90 to 94% range, specifically in Zone 1, where a majority of our calls are occurring. When we are late, we are assessed fines. Those fines then go to a special grant fund. That grant fund is managed by the county and through the ambulance compliance office. Once a year, those funds become available for grant purchases for the fire departments within Shawnee County to utilize for improving their EMS system. So this is just a couple of things Topeka Fire has been able to utilize it for: stop the bleed kits that they use in their public training and education, as well as in 2020 was a pretty large purchase of about $24,000 for the purchase of Pulse Point in the community. This is our oversight. The names on here are incorrect, so I apologize. I didn't have time to change this, but we do have an ambulance advisory board that we report to. The ambulance advisory board has got a whole bunch of stakeholders that we feel is important. There's 2 citizens at large. There's representation from both hospitals, rural fire, city fire, as well as a county commissioner. So they are an advisory board only, but anytime that we have any type of new innovation, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, we always take it through this group and solicit their approval and weed out all of the concerns that they may have moving forward. This is our headquarters. When I got here in 2015, can't believe it's been 7 years that I've been here in Topeka now, but to what it looks like today, so pretty proud of that. We are one of only 2 ambulance services that are accredited within the state of Kansas. If any of you are any familiar with hospital boards or have worked in the hospital and you've heard of the Joint Commission that they have to answer for, this is the EMS version of the Joint Commission. So they not only assure that our policies and our protocols are to the gold standard of EMS care, but they also make sure that we're not only talking the talk, but we walk the walk by surprise inspections and reviews every 3 years. So we're very proud of that, to be one of only 2 services within the state of Kansas. Some of you may have noticed we are not addicted to quick shops. We don't love their roller grills. That's not why we sit at the quick shop. So we operate what's called system status management, and this is what helps our response time. So when our units come on for the day, they leave headquarters and they go out into the big world of Topeka, Kansas. And if you look at the map, you see the little white dots. It's kind of hard to see on the TV, but those are different posting locations. So as the ambulances start to receive calls, our system that we use kind of predicts where the next ambulance call is going to be, and we'll make sure that we move ambulances to those particular locations in order to hopefully capture and provide the greatest response time that we can. So that's why you see them out at the convenience stores. It's not like we're always taking breaks or taking naps. So that's the reason behind that. When you call 911 today, we do what's called the emergency medical dispatching, and this is going to be important to this very last slide that we're going to talk about innovation, and that's why I've got it in here. So when you call 911, you basically are ran through a medical interrogation. The questions are the same. They're very systematic. It's all done by a computer system, and based on that outcome, it determines, is it an alpha level call, which is a BLS, non-emergent call? Is this like a stub toe, a toothache, an earache? You guys look surprised, but that's something that we do quite often. Or is it a delta and echo, which is a high acuity ALS emergent response, we need someone there yesterday type of call. So this is a very unique process. We do operate both ALS and BLS ambulances in the system. This is something new that we've had into play about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, we were contractually required to have only ALS ambulances in the service. In the Shawnee County and within the city of Topeka, but we were able to pilot some BLS units as well, which is a lower level of service to take care of those lower acuity calls, to make sure that our paramedics and our ALS services were able to get to the heart attacks, to the strokes, and to those kind of things. So advanced life support versus basic life support, I know you guys have had conversations with that with your fire department, so you're pretty familiar with that, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these 2 slides here. So this is our current CAD system that we utilize. That's our computer-aided dispatch system within Shawnee County. It's called Logis. It's very smart and it's very adaptive. When a call comes in and that dispatcher has completed that EMD process, the system then goes out and looks at all of the ambulances that are in the city of Topeka, and it says that the ambulance up there at the North Quick Trip is the closest by using real-time traffic and weather data, and it will automatically dispatch that truck. There's no radio traffic, there's no tones that happens. The system automatically dispatches that truck. They have a handheld device like what's in the center there that's mounted in the truck. They acknowledge the call, they're en route to the call, they're on scene of the call, so we're completely radio silent in our day-to-day operations. Unless there's an emergency need, then they'll hop on the radio. So next steps. So this is probably the most exciting thing and probably one of the most scary things, because within Shawnee County, the system has been the same for forever. When you call 911, you get a big red fire truck and you get a big red ambulance, or you get an ambulance every single time, right? Regardless of what that call may be. So when the pandemic hit, we really started seeing some struggles within the hospitals. Diversion, both hospitals being on diversion quite often, almost daily for a very extended amount of times. And a lot of that's due to staffing, which we have the same challenges with staffing after the pandemic and all of that as well. So we started working with the county health officer, emergency management, and both of the hospitals to come up with solutions of what can we do to make this system better? How can we better serve the community, especially that underserved community that rely on us primarily as their healthcare system? There is a large group that does that, that will call us. Today, as it stands, if we respond, in order for us to be reimbursed by an insurance company, whether it's state, federal, or private insurance, we have to transport them to an emergency room. If we transport anywhere else, those weren't able to be reimbursed. So this is where this innovative practice comes into place. So after you call 911 and you hit that 911 dispatcher and they run you through that EMD process and it codes out as one of those low acuity BLS level calls, what will happen is no resources will be sent. That person will be rolled over to a nurse that's licensed within the state of Kansas. That nurse will then do a triage of that patient over the phone. And there's a few things that nurse can do based upon the results of that triage. The first is the nurse can say, well, sounds like you have a cold or maybe you have the flu. So what you need to do is take some ibuprofen, Tylenol every 4 to 6 hours, monitor your fever, drink lots of fluids, get rest. We'll call you back in 24 hours and see how you're doing. That's one option that they can do. The second option they can do is if they have a smart device, they can connect them right to a telehealth professional right there in their home and have a consultation with a doctor right there in their home. The third thing is if they deem that this person needs to be seen, but it doesn't reach the level of a medical emergency, we have portals. We have portal to portal with both Lyft and Uber. We can get in there and we can order a Lyft and Uber at no expense to your constituents. They will go pick them up and then they will deliver them to an alternative care place, like an urgent care center, or if it's a mental health, it might be Vallejo, or if it's somebody that's low pay, no pay, it could be Grace Med. So it allows us to get these people that would have normally had an ambulance bill and then a very large ER bill to get them to appropriate level of care, which allows the hospitals to be open and take care of the people that they need to be taken care of within the emergency room. And then the fourth is they say, yeah, this patient probably needs to be seen, and then we're going to send an ambulance and transport that patient to the emergency room. So this is something that we've been working on for, I don't know, months and months, having meetings with stakeholders to include the fire departments as well as the health systems, Vallejo, and just community partners to get support to bring this program in. We do this across the United States at many locations. Probably, our pilot and our pilot ship of this is Washington, D.C., where we've been doing that for about 4 years because their system was overran and used and abused. So we were able to partner with Washington, D.C. Fire, supplement BLS trucks into their system, as well as use the nurse navigation system. So this is going to be new. It's going to be completely different for the citizens, but I think it's important that, this is the right thing that we do moving forward with EMS. The times are changing, and we need to continue to change with them. So I'll stand for some questions if you have them.
Thank you. Questions on the presentation? I have a couple I just wanted to ask. You mentioned that on the dispatch piece, that it's an automatic dispatch, there's no radio traffic. Okay. Are there backups so that, let's say, law enforcement or firefighters in the community, if they arrive before AMR or they see something en route, and is there a way, do they use the Consolidated Communication Center to pass that on and then it gets radioed to you, or how?
So there's a couple different ways. One thing I did not mention is with this contract, we did bring our dispatch back to the city of Topeka. We set within the Consolidated Communication Center. We have 2 employees in there 24 hours a day, all the time. But like specifically with Topeka Fire, we have an ops channel that we operate on. We still have radios. We still monitor those radios. So we're able to communicate back and forth if we need to hey, AMR, you can cancel, or hey, Topeka Fire, you guys can cancel. But we have that ability to communicate back and forth with each other.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Antrim? Councilman Dobler, and then Councilman Nager.
Thanks, John, for being here. Just a question. So you have 2 dispatchers sitting in the Consolidated Center. When a call first comes in, it goes to one of the county dispatchers, right?
So that recently changed. So before, what was happening was when the 911 call came, the PSAP was answering it, which is the county, as you referred to. The PSAP would then get basic information to enter their call, and then they would transfer that to us. Now what's happening within the system with anticipation of moving forward with nurse navigation is they say 911, do you need police, fire, EMS? If they say EMS, then they transfer that call immediately to us, and then we enter the call, and with our CAD to CAD interface, we're able to push that call back over when it's time to be dispatched on the fire side.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for this presentation. It has been very informative. And as a dentist, I really appreciate you guys taking those emergency calls. But I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Thank you, John, I appreciate, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hiller.
I wanted to thank you as well. It was really informative, and it sounds like you're doing some really great, innovative, reactive, I suppose, but innovative. So what does this whole system do to what you described at first, where typically people called, no matter what the reason was, fire truck shows up and AMR shows up. So you guys are doing this process whereby you're doing telehealth. So does that mean our fire department's not going out either?
Yeah,
How's
that's
that working?
correct. When it hits that low acuity call,
Okay.
0 resources will be sent. So, the benefit is, it keeps them resources available to respond to the fires or their higher acuity calls. So, yeah, it's going to change the system. And really, once we get to the point where we're going to be rolling this out, we need that community backing from the governing body as well as from the first responder community that this is really going to benefit the community moving forward. So, yeah, it's going to completely change the way that it looks. So fire or EMS would not respond to those low acuity calls.
Thank you so much, and I don't know which of the body asked for this, but this is very timely and very informative. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I left my card with all of you guys. I know I've had conversations with some of you. If you would like to tour our facility or come over and learn more about us, that's always open. Just shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'd be more than happy to get you set up. Thank you.
Thank you again, John. Move on to the consent agenda, if the clerk would read.
A is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of March 26 to April 29, 2022, and enumerating said expenditures therein. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz granting Fellowship Highcrest an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. C is approval of a professional services contract under the Human Resources Department for legal services related to workers' compensation litigated claims between the City of Topeka and McAney, Van Cleve, and Phillips, PA, to perform various legal services necessary to represent the city and handle all of the litigated workers' compensation claims. D D is approval of utilities contract for engineering design services between the City of Topeka and Professional Engineering Consulting, PA, to aid the city with engineering design and construction phase services for water main replacement project 281245 Phase 3 along Southwest Arvonia Place, Southwest Wood Glen Street, and Southwest 38th Place. ER minutes of the regular meeting of May 17, 2022, and the special meeting of May 31, 2022. There's a list of cereal malt beverage applications that were distributed, and staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. You've heard the consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion. Motion to approve by Councilman Kell, a second from Councilman Dobler. If you'll call the vote, please.
Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Lesser?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiller?
Yes.
And Emerson.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, motion carries.
Okay, the motion being carried, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, the action items. These are a public hearing. I recognize the clerk, please.
A is a public hearing for the purpose of considering written or oral objections to the proposed assessments on file in the office of the clerk on all lots, parcels, and pieces of ground liable for the cost of improvement, save meaning sanitary sewer improvement for Horseshoe Bend subdivision number 5, authorized by resolution of advisability and authorization number 9251, adopted and approved August 17, 2021, and an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran, apportioning and levying a special assessment on certain lots and pieces of ground in the city of Topeka, Shawnee County, Kansas, in the area of Horseshoe Bend sub number 5 for sanitary sewer improvement project number 401082, as defined and described in resolution number 9251, adopted and approved on August 17, 2021.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and governing body. This one and the next 3 are public hearings. After each one of them individually, they'll have to vote on those. And so with that,
Thank you. Okay, as explained by the city manager, we have to take each of these individually. So I will open the public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak to the matter. Is there anyone present?
Yes,
Where?
right in the back of the limo.
Okay, didn't see it. Thank you. You step forward, please.
Yeah, right up here to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Latasha Jackson. I've been homeless for 5 years. I've tried every channel, avenue, whatever.
Ma'am, we're not speaking to that issue right
Why
now.
not?
We're on public hearing for a different ordinance. You can
Different
come,
ordinance.
yes, you can come up during the public comment period.
Oh,
You're signed up to speak at the very end of the meeting for public comment.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, again, for a second time, I'll ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak to this matter. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this matter regarding Horseshoe Bend sub number 5? Is there anyone present? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. And now I'll ask the governing body if they have any comment or wish to speak to this matter. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance? Have a motion to approve by Councilman Dobler. Have a second by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the vote, please.
Okay, we have council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
council members Hiller,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion being carried, we'll move on to action item 5B, if the clerk would read.
B is a public hearing for the purpose of considering written or oral objections to the proposed assessments on file in the office of the clerk on all lots, parcels, and pieces of ground liable for the cost of improvement, same being street improvement for Horseshoe Bend subdivision number 5, authorized by resolution of advisability and authorization number 9159, adopted and approved January 21, 2020. And an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran, apportioning and levying a special assessment on certain lots and pieces of ground in the city of Topeka, Shawnee County, Kansas, in the area of Horseshoe Bend subdivision number 5 for street improvement project number 601117, as defined and described in resolution number 9159, adopted and approved on January 21, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Again, this, I think with the next three, we just kind of roll into them.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone who would like to speak to the matter, and that is the matter of the Horseshoe Bend Sub Number 5 Street Project. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the matter at this time? Is there anyone who would like to speak to the matter at this time with regards to the Horseshoe Bend Sub Number 5 Street Project? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Move on to action item 5C.
Mr. Mayor, you need to vote on the ordinance on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the ordinance. Okay. Councilwoman Nager. And second by Councilman Emerson. Thank you. If you call the vote, please.
Councilmembers Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
and Nager.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move on now to action item 5C.
C is a
Madam
public hearing for the purpose of considering written or oral objections to the proposed assessments on file in the office of the clerk on all lots, parcels, and pieces of ground liable for the cost of improvement, same being street improvement for Sherwood Village subdivision authorized by resolution of advisability and authorization number 9157, adopted and approved January 21, 2020, and an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran, apportioning and levying a special assessment on certain lots and pieces of ground in the city of Topeka, Shawnee County, Kansas, for street improvement project number 601113 to provide street improvements for Sherwood Village subdivision, adopted and approved on January 21, 2020.
Thank you. City Manager, do you have anything to report? Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak to the matter. Second time. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to the matter of the Sherwood Village subdivision street project? Is there anyone who would like to speak to the matter on the Sherwood Village subject of the street project? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Move on now to, sorry. The chair would entertain a motion to accept Councilwoman Nager and a second by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the roll vote, please.
Councilmembers Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
I have 8, motion carries.
Okay, motion carries and move on to action item 5D. If the clerk would read.
D is a public hearing for the purpose of considering written and oral objections to the proposed assessments on file in the office of the clerk on all lots, parcels, and pieces of ground liable for the cost of improvement, same being street improvement for Misty Harbor Estates number 5, authorized by resolution of advisability and authorization number 9212, adopted and approved February 16, 2021, and an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran apportioning and levying a special assessment on certain lots and pieces of ground in the city of Topeka, Shawnee County, Kansas, in the area of Misty Harbor Estates Number 5 for street improvement project number 601123, as defined and described in resolution number 9212, adopted and approved on February 16, 2021.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak to the matter of Misty Harbor Estates. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to the matter of the Misty Harbor Estates Street project? Is there anyone present who would like to speak to the matter of the Misty Harbor Estates Street project? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Now, the chair will entertain a motion to approve. Councilwoman Nager moves to approve.
I'll second it.
Second from Councilman Emerson. If you'll call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, motion carries.
Motion being carried. We'll move now to action item 5E. Mr. City Manager, as this is different from
It is,
everything else we have.
yes. Mayor, government body, this is the public hearing on the amended consolidation action plan in which we received information on a couple weeks back. And so this is set for an action item. We do have staff present if there's any additional questions.
Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone present who would like to speak to the matter of the Consolidated Action Plan Amendment. Anyone present who would like to speak to the matter of the Consolidated Action Plan Amendment? Anyone who would like to speak to the matter of the Consolidated Action Plan Amendment? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. The chair would entertain a motion.
No action.
This is
Okay.
just a public hearing. There's no
Okay.
need for action.
All right. You get me on a roll, and then you cut me right off. Okay, we'll move on to action item number 5F.
F is a resolution introduced by council members Tony Emerson, Neil Dobler, and Mike Lesser, serving as the Public Infrastructure Committee, amending the City of Topeka Local Stormwater Improvement Project Policy.
Mr. City Manager?
Mayor, governing body, this is work that has been done between those council members and the Public Works Director and Utilities Director, Mr. Copley, and it is to amend and update and provide better services to the citizens of Topeka.
I don't see that we have anyone signed up for public comment on this. Are there any questions from the body? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could have Mr. Copley or whoever, the wording is general enough. Could you please describe what kinds of projects this has to do with and why we need to go from 100 to 300,000? Thank you.
Happy to. Thank you for the opportunity. This program is the Drainage Correction Program, and this was established 22 years ago. At that time, we set a budget limit of $100,000. $100,000 doesn't go nearly as far now, 22 years later. Also, at the time, we had a threshold that you had to have 3 or more property owners affected. And we have had cases where we only have 2 property owners affected. And so that is the reason, those are the 2 reasons that I'm here in front of you. First of all, to ask for increase of this program from 100,000 to 300, I'm sorry, of a single project limit from 100,000 to 300,000, and to allow me to reduce from 3 people to 2 affected people to fall within the purview of this particular project. And so these are localized flooding that affect hopefully 2 or more people, that the city can come in and make improvements to alleviate the damage from the localized flooding. So that's the gist of the program. One of the requirements is that the property owners have to convey as a donation any easement that is necessary, stormwater easement or utility easement, to allow us to complete these projects. As part of this overarching DCP or drainage correction program, we periodically, typically it's every 3 years, put bids out for contractors to sign up so that we have a pool of contractors ready and able to be able to respond based on what we come up with the design and the estimated project costs. It allows us to be as responsive as possible in terms of how we set this up. So with that, I'll gladly stand for any questions you have on the DCP program or my ask for tonight.
Thank you. If I could follow up. So this isn't necessarily putting in like a stormwater, storm sewer pipe underground. This might more likely be grading somebody's property so the water would, could you describe maybe 1 or 2 projects?
Absolutely. So the Woodbridge project that we did, that was a vegetated swale. That was one where we had high ground up here with a lot of runoff coming down, and we had people who were affected by the runoff. And so what we did was we created a berm and a swale to intercept the water, take it, convey it down, and put it into our enclosed system. To the greatest extent possible, we always want to promote infiltration. And so where I've got the opportunity to do a vegetated swale to promote that infiltration, I will take that over a trickle channel or an enclosed system. Also, enclosed systems, we only designed to handle a 10-year event. So it's going to fail. So I still have to come up with a safe overflow route for the conveyance of that stormwater as well. So thank you. Good questions.
Thank you. And so this is what we do to the extent that we can to keep from somebody's house having to come down because we haven't been able to manage it at all.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, could you do the?
That was very good, right?
We could all do that. You know, this is a great program. I think everybody pays stormwater utility, and the majority of the projects are big. They take a long time to develop, take a long time to build. I don't know that people really relate the stormwater fee they're paying every month to those projects. This program is easy to relate. They make a call, it gets taken care of in a short period of time compared to the big project. So I think it's a fantastic program and a great use of our stormwater utility money. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Further comment? Councilman Lesser.
The only thing I would add is we actually have in my district a reoccurring issue off 6th Street by Crest Drive on this. Most recently, we had some surface water there that pools and then ended up flooding a 101-year-old. I think actually I have to give Braxton a lot of credit. He met with the son of a 101-year-old lady who lives on Crest Drive who had water in her basement, and this is an exact example of the ability, at least on this area, for us to go in there and be able to solve the issue of multi-residence versus just, you know, at the 100,000, we wouldn't be able to solve the problem for everybody in that area. So I too support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Further comment? I'd like to thank, oh, okay, there he is. Councilman Emerson.
You're muted.
Yeah, for some reason I couldn't get it to unmute. I apologize, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to say what Councilman Lesser and Dover said, I wholeheartedly agree with. However, my company doesn't have a contract under this. We have not done any work on it, I want to say in 2 or 3 years. I think that Woodbridge project might have been the last one we did, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But But just because there might be appearance of a conflict, I'm going to abstain from this, but I do support it.
Thank you. I want to thank the members of the committee, Councilman Emerson, Lesser, and Dobler, for their work on this and bringing this to the body. I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion to approve by Councilman Kell, second by Councilman Dobler. If the clerk would read the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Emerson will abstain.
Yes.
Councilmembers Kale?
Yes. Yes, abstain, yeah.
Mager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Lesser?
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
We'll move on to number 6 on the agenda, the non-action items, if the clerk would read.
A is a discussion regarding committee report from the Policy and Finance Committee, meeting to review various application styles for use in social service requests for ARPA dollars.
Thank you, City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, this is referred to the body as a whole from the Policy and Finance Committee. It's to start the discussion on the ARPA application process. With that, with your blessing, I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Duncan to present.
Aren't you all lucky? Here we go.
Deputy Mayor, do we want to have public comment on this before we have one person signed up for public comment before? Dr. Burton, are you here? You were, there you are.
Yes, sir.
You speak to this item?
Yes.
Mayor, City Manager, City Council, thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. I want to say I've had a chance to kind of review the grant application as somebody who is interested in applying. It seems like the committee has done an outstanding job. It looks like good work. It seems like a decent, a fair application. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. When City Council does work that is admirable, I'd like to say so, and you guys have done a good job here. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor.
Now I'm going to suggest changes that I hope don't get me in trouble with the doctor over there. I don't think so. I think they're all pretty vanilla. Thank you very much, Mayor. So the committee there's 3 documents in front of you, and my goal here tonight is to go through each one of those separately. I'm not going to read every sentence, don't worry, but to break them down. One is the application itself, one is some guidelines and criteria, and the third is a timeline. And so if you have a question that might relate to one of those, you can ask it whenever, but try to wait till we get there and we'll answer it unless it crosses over. To kind of keep us moving forward. I'm not going to read through the entire application as it's been available now for a week or more actually to everybody. What I am going to do is go through some suggested changes that we probably should make, and I'll explain why in discussions with staff, and a few changes that were brought forward by some council members that really are just some wording or additional questions for consideration. Most of the ones I'm going to put forward I've looked at pretty heavily, and I do not think any of these changes fundamentally change anything the committee was trying to do or alter our goals. At the end of this day, this is our application as a group. Our goal was to give us a starting point, a talking point, and go from there. So I'm sort of, if you got it in front of you, or I'm just going to kind of walk through. We're going to remove 2 things at the top. One is the unique entity identifier, and the other is the paragraph that says, according to most recent IRS Form 941. Those questions could unintentionally disqualify some groups, not disqualify, but confuse groups who don't have to file those pieces of paperwork, or don't have those, and that was not our intent. We can still get that information regardless of those. If you go to section 3, there was a recommendation made that instead of calling it the statement of need, we simply call it the summaries. I don't have an objection to that or an issue with that. The first, I guess, significant change would come with the first page 1, where we say statement of need, attach answers, additional document where needed. Please explain what the grant funds will be used for. The recommendation has, because we sort of repeat this question on the second page, was to break this into 2 questions. The first would be name the program for which you are applying, which has them put a name to what we're going to be discussing, give it an identifier. And the second is describe your organization, its programs, and how this program fits in. And that's a way for us just to get some more background information without requiring a lot of documentation as to who those folks are, what their, a little bit of who their background is, and how they plan to utilize this program in their existing. So I don't know how you folks want to do this. I guess if there's objections to those, I know Councilmember Valdivia-Acla is not here tonight, but I don't think she would object to that. I know Councilwoman Nager is here, so she can definitely speak up and say, whoa, that's not what we intended. That completely changes everything we discussed. But like I said, I don't think it does. I think the goal of some of these changes is to provide more information without making the application too much bigger, if that makes sense. Our goal is to keep this thing kind of lean and mean and get the information that we needed. The second significant change would be with the next question, and it would now read, please describe how receiving these funds will provide long-term benefits for citizens and how the program will be sustained. We have talked extensively on this council about making sure that these dollars not just get used towards a one-shot program, but enhance something. If you want to call it a return on investment, you can. That's a little more business-like than maybe we want to go. But the intent is that it sustains something long-term as opposed to a one-shot program. And that question with a little more specificity will help us address that. We would then, if you look to page 2, we have a question about how has the pandemic impacted the effectiveness of your organization. That would stay. We'd like to add a question that says, how do you see the future for your organization and its program post-pandemic? Again, this just gives us some additional insight into how some stability of their program, how they foresee coming out of where we are. If we want to call this post-COVID, I don't know what we're calling this new era of year, but it would give us, again, a little more insight into that.
Just hope.
On the next question, under general data, we would instead say, please provide an overview of the proposed program. It would simply say, please provide a detailed explanation. The goal is to get them to provide a little more information than just some general comments. We would also add, and this is the last significant question change we would make, we would add a question that would please say, please describe what other funding is available and what you have secured or expect to secure for this project. The answer to that, and we were clear with this, does not disqualify anybody. So if you say, well, we've got some money from another source, it's not a disqualifier. What it does do is help us know what we're enhancing, how these ARPA dollars would enhance what you've received, which would add to your ability to sustain your program. Those are the fairly significant changes that were brought forward to me. There was one question about the top, does your organization assist any of the following? And we specifically asked about rental assistance, transitory populations, other unsheltered homeless and sheltered homeless. There's an argument to be made that's not a 100% necessary question. I will be honest, and she's not here tonight, we had a very lengthy conversation about this question. For us, it's a way to gather some data on an issue that's facing us right now while we have that opportunity that we may not otherwise have. So while I know there's been some question about removing it, my preference would be to keep it. I don't think it hurts anything, and it makes sure we satisfy some requests of other council members who would like that question. So that's what's in front of you. Those would be my proposed changes. I don't know, I guess on this application itself then, I will entertain questions, comments, changes, issues, whatever may be in front of you to ask about.
Councilman Lesser.
I would, I have one question and then a couple quick comments. Can you give me a little bit of what the insight is on Section 4, General Data? Please provide an overview of the proposed program.
Yeah, we would change that actually to a detailed explanation, and that would be the section where they would essentially tell us how that program is intended to operate. In other words, the hope would be they'd provide us more than just, I'm going to use this as the most simplistic example possible. We want to hand out food, right? That sounds great, but the goal there would be they would provide a detailed explanation of what that program looks like of handing out food.
So that would be aimed more at a new program that was being brought on, whether it was an existing organization or a new organization, correct?
Correct, and then when we get into the guidelines and information, one of the requirements we have put in there is that you have to at least, not your program, but your entity we proposed has to have been in place for 3 years. Now, that's only half of it, because you can be an old entity wanting a new program, but we have at least requested that entities have been around pre-pandemic. That's a half answer to your question.
Yeah, no, that answers that. I think the only thing that I would propose that
Did he freeze?
I hope so, 'cause that was a
He's very thoughtful.
Say, had me on the edge.
Left us hanging.
He's still there, blank screen. I guess till he comes back.
Anyway,
as well as any.
Okay.
Mike, we lost you, so you gotta repeat all that.
You got me now?
Yeah, sorry.
No, the only thing I was saying was, under statement of need, I would like for there to be a question that says, please explain any capital infrastructure needs of the organization, as well as any current capital projects and the amount of debt on those projects. What I'm getting at is, if we have any organizations that have been told in the last 6 months that they need a new roof that's going to be $200,000, or we have, just throwing it out there, Family and Service and Guidance Center is building a new addition that's adding a wing for housing youth with mental illness and addiction issues, and their capital, their capital expenditure on that, their debt on that is X amount. That's the type of information I'm however you want to tailor the question. That's what I'm trying to get at, because as I've said all along, I like the idea of going to these organizations and identifying some of those things, which then removes debt, which then removes interest on that debt, which then also frees up that cash for them to use on projects that they maybe already have or they see fit, versus startup projects and so forth. So that's just my 2 cents of one question I would at least like to see on the application to be used to help evaluate.
We actually talked about that briefly. I think we didn't include it because we just stopped talking about it and then didn't follow up on it one of the three. So that was actually something we had discussed, just to get, again, as you said, a general idea of what some of their real needs are, because there will be some organizations, whether we choose at the end of the day to provide that funding, there's certainly a valid discussion there of how that could impact the longevity of programs that are currently in existence. So I don't know what other people's thoughts are, but I don't have any problem working with staff on putting a question like that together.
Okay. Further suggestions or comments? Councilman Cow.
Now, on that section where you mentioned about the other grants or things they may have received, have you put anything about which ones they've applied for, and just to kind of gauge where are these programs just looking solely at us, or are they just trying to help themselves anywhere they can? Because I kind of look at it as, if you're trying to look the different avenues, you're bettering yourself as a group rather than just saying we're just going to wait for the city ARPA funds. And I just kind of, to me, that almost gives a little bit more merit, a little bit more points if they've gone out and tried multiple avenues.
So I hope or think, and we can look at a way to reword it, that please describe what other funding is available might address that. That's the purpose of that question. We don't want to be slippery. We did discuss a lot, and I know the council talked about a lot at one of our special meetings, was, do we disqualify groups if they've received funding from other sources? We ended up falling back on the idea of, no, that should not be an outright disqualifier. And part of that was, we heard from 2 organizations where their funding gets murky. In other words, if you're, whether it's United Way or Jayhawk Area on Agents, they may get gotten funds, but they didn't actually get to keep any of them. They technically received them, but then they had to redistribute them to other groups. So they would technically have to answer yes, but then would be disqualified if we made that an automatic. So we're hoping through these questions, though, we can discern, have you, describe what other funding you've got secured already or have applied for.
Okay.
So yeah, that's our goal with that question. Okay. And then we as a body can say, okay, well, I know you want this money, but you got a big pot. But that's not, we wanted to make it clear that was not an automatic disqualifier.
Which makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, Councilman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to say I really appreciate and am impressed by the flexibility that you built into this in terms of who all could apply, and it sounds like you've cleaned up a couple of small things even that emerged with the questions. I think where you're going with this application, and don't want to get ahead of you on the calendar, but the choices of what can be funded and how you're going to go about it also make a lot of sense to me. I have just one, and I think I followed all the changes, and they sound good to me. I'm glad you're adding them because it's important to, it's hard to do to write these grants. And so asking all the questions that are important up front so people can do that first, and then everybody had to answer the same questions, and that'll really be good. I have one sort of suggestion, and that would be that 3,000 characters per answer is a lot of
So
words.
I asked staff, that's 500 words. 3,000 characters is 500 words. So we were going to ask, would we prefer we change it to how many words, or do we think three? But we did say it's 450 to 500 words is 3,000 characters, which doesn't sound like that many to me, but I'm the guy who wanted unlimited on the city manager thing, so maybe.
I thought, okay, but having written them as well as been on the review team on those, I didn't have a lot of time to check, but I looked in the social service block grant ones, which is United Way's format, has 1,000 character limit on every question. Might be something to just look into a little bit more on.
We'll look at it again before it goes live, and if nothing else, we'll split the difference and make it 15.
We'll put the words so it doesn't sound like they're going to write novels on every single answer.
Yeah, we did try to ask what the words were. So yeah, we will look at that, and we may reduce that to that 1,500 or something very that's similar to our other process, which seems to work okay. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Further comments?
So in terms of Councilwoman Nager.
Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank the Deputy Mayor for all of the hard work that he's put into this. This has really been something that he has driven, and I also am very appreciative of all the work that Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala has put into this. I think we've put together, I'm glad to hear that everybody else feels like we've been doing a good job, because I'm very, very proud of where we are right now. And I think that this is a great way to go ahead and amplify the use of these dollars going forward. Thank you guys for your consideration. And again, thank you to Councilwoman, Deputy Mayor, and to the staff for all of the work they've put into it. It looks really, really great. And I think it will do a lot of good in the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
So the goal now is I will go back with staff. We will make these changes. I think they can be made pretty quick, at least to get posted so you guys can review them. We'll put them up as an action item next week, and then if we choose when to defer it again, that's fine, but we'll move it forward. Because the next part of this, I'll go to the timeline first and kind of give you a quick explanation. Tonight we put obviously to present it, hopeful with approval by next week. This is a movable timeline, so if it doesn't get approved next week, our goal would just be push everything back accordingly, where we won't shorten the process just because we took an extra week or two, so don't feel pressure on that end. The goal would be, if it's approved next week, staff will hold within a few days after that a webinar that will answer questions about this process. That webinar will then be posted so that people can go back and watch it to help walk them through the process, answer any questions. We'll also have an FAQ that we're working on now of what we think will be the most commonly asked questions. I'm sure we'll miss some. And of course, as we get the most commonly asked, we can add them to the FAQ. So that will be part of that. The goal then is at the latest, and it could be sooner, before the June 27th date, because staff has already actually has a template up online, ready to go live once changes are made. But at the latest, these applications would open on June 27th with a closing deadline of July 30th. Then in August would be our application review process. To date, this body has not given any direction as to who will be doing that review process. The members of the Policy and Finance Committee took that to mean we will probably be doing the review process, and we're okay with that as opposed to needing to appoint a second group. But we remind all council members that all our meetings are open to all council members who can participate in that process. So we will make sure those are made available and even discussed with folks, so anybody can come as we work through those and look at what we've got and talk about them. So until we're told otherwise, we are going to plan that we're the group that does it with anyone's assistance who wants to participate. Our goal would be in August to then do what we're calling the initial application review. That doesn't mean we're going to open the applications back up. What it does mean is we came up with probably two options that will happen to us. One is we will get applications that exceed the $10 million. That's, of course, a very likely scenario, at which point we will make a first round of reviews of those, and then we will work with staff to get any follow-up information we think we need from those groups who made the first round, additional financials, add-on questions, and such to give us a better understanding of what their program is they want presented. The other scenario we did assume was it's possible we only get $8 million of requests when all the applications come in. At that point, we will still treat that process not as everybody gets money because we didn't meet it. We will still treat that process with diligence and go through those, make an initial round to bring back to the body. We will then come back to this body and say, hey, we have $2 more million. Let's debate what we want to do with that $2 million. Take it back into the program or do something else with it. So we did discuss what could happen in that timeline if that happens, and so that was sort of our plan. The overall goal is, after that process, we would be able to make a decision in September with hopefully the October 11th meeting timeline being when we would bring final recommendations to this body to discuss and or approve from that point. So our goal is to have this done by October. If that doesn't happen because we think we need to slow down or make changes, we can do that. But we don't want to leave. We thought if we could get it done before the end of the year, that would probably help a lot of organizations who are trying to plan for 2023. So what they're trying to do. The last document in front of you is what we came up with, was the ARPA funds guidelines and information for applicants. I will not read all these. I will hit a couple highlights. You do have to be located within the city limits of Topeka. We do request that you are in good standing and have been in existence for a minimum of 3 years. We remind people these are one-time funds. They are not recurring. So any program you want to fund today, there's not going to be more money to fund it when the money runs out. And that's got to be a part of our deliberation process as we go through it. We have also tried to make it clear with these that this is not a business program. There have been multiple and many business support programs through COVID. That is not what this is intended to be. We want this to be for the community, for social service, for nonprofits, even for-profits who are operating social service programs. But the goal is that these dollars go to the community. Yes, the businesses are parts of the community, but they've had many more resources available through COVID than some of these other organizations. You'll see a qualifying program list, which includes what we think captures what the governing body discussed in the several meetings we had to discuss this. We also have what the funds cannot be used for, and that includes things like replenishing a savings fund. You can't use it to pay off a judgment in court. Oh, there was one. All right, well, there's one on here we need to take off. It should not say wage payments or salaries. That's an old draft. That's coming off. Because one of the things we had is if you're using it to help drug counseling, that's a salary. We did not want to disqualify that type of program. So I thought I took that off, and I apologize. But you can't pay back taxes with it. So in fact, you can't really qualify for this program if you owe back taxes, but you definitely can't use it to pay back taxes. And you can't use it to loan to other people. We are not your loan shark. You don't get to get our money and then go out and charge someone a vig on top of it. So those are sort of the things we wanted to make clear to folks, that give them some direction early on, that if you're on this list or you don't do or don't meet it, great. Apply or don't apply. So that is what's in front of you this evening. move forward. And these will be part of the application process.
Councilman Cowan, then Councilman Hiller.
On the qualifications there that you're just talking about the organization's primary office or location must be within the city limits of Topeka. We do have some organizations that are city limits are within the city of Topeka, but they branch out. Like one example you gave earlier is the Jayhawk Area on Aging. They do. Are we going to make sure that that money is actually spent within the city of Topeka? Because if we give it to these organizations that branch out to multiple counties, we haven't put anything on there that says they can't use that money outside of all. They could use all that money outside of Topeka.
I believe that's our intent, so I'd be more than happy to clarify that on here. That's part of the program.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Before she said one thing, yeah, this was one thing missing from here that should be on the qualifying programs is also elder care. Notice that one was missing.
We have two different copies.
Oh, well, this is the copy that was in my packet, so
It's elder care on.
Okay, then the packet I have is old and the packet you have is the right one. There we go.
Making me nervous.
So never mind. No, I have the draft, but I thought that's the one that was, sorry. So we're good. Then we're good. Never mind. That was the draft that got corrected.
I did have a question.
Was that your question? Go ahead.
No, maybe again with different copies, but on my copy, the very first item under funds cannot be used for is debt service. And particularly since Councilman Lesser brought up something about debt earlier, I just wanted to double check whether that's on the final list.
It's on the final list. Councilman Lesser, you can correct me. I sort of interpreted what he was saying was they may want to use it for things that would defer them having to borrow for capital improvements versus borrowing money, paying off debt they've already incurred before qualifying for these funds. But
He can answer that, but I
Right.
caught it because it seemed important and just wanted to ask. Also, back to Councilman Cowell's question, so you've got an organization like Harvesters, for instance, that's based out of Kansas City but has a big operation here. They would not be eligible under these guidelines.
they have an office here, so under these guidelines, they would qualify. Whether we then, as a governing body, believe they should qualify based on the expanse, that I think that's an open discussion.
Okay, so the wording here, primary office or location, doesn't mean primary location.
No, sorry, we can change, we can word that better. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make that correction.
Thank you.
No, we just want to make sure they have a presence in the city,
Okay,
if that makes, so if they have a satellite office but they're serving citizens of Topeka, we want to make sure they qualify and not, well, no, you're based out of Kansas City. Yeah, but we're helping the citizens of Topeka, so.
okay.
We don't want to disqualify them.
City manager?
I just want to make sure I didn't mishear. When we talked about the webinar for the application, I just want to make sure it's Thursday, June 23rd.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure what it was, okay.
I just want to make sure I didn't mishear.
You did,
And,
because I said it wrong. When you heard right, I said it wrong.
And then, Mayor, I think Finance has a couple things to add.
Okay. Mr. Wade?
Mr. Mayor, just a clarification on debt service. We believe it is an ARPA prohibition to be able to use the money for debt service. So trying to clarify your question, Councilwoman, we cannot use it for debt service.
Okay.
Yeah, there weren't many restrictions because of the fancy legaling we did in the terms of how we accepted those ARPA funds, but there were a few that still, no matter how we accepted them, still couldn't be used for.
I just wanted to clarify, particularly since
Yeah.
you didn't mention it when you went through your list. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No. I mean, I can keep talking.
You know, you deserve the compliments you're getting, because this is excellent work. And I really think that having served on the Social Services Grant Committee before, I know the struggles that some of those organizations had with the application and trying to get the right information in the right time. And I think you've really made a clear, streamlined application that there should be no real issues with, but adding the webinar really makes a big difference too, because I'm not sure they had one once before when we did social services grants, but I know on a regular basis, there were requests that came to my office saying, so who do we talk to about how do we get this right? We want to make sure our information is accurate, and I think that webinar is a real good piece to add to the simplified form that you put in place.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but I will say the other members of the committee did a very good job in being responsive and responding quickly so that we could keep this moving. So when we did finally have our meetings, we could get right to work instead of starting over every meeting, and that made a big difference. Several of us here pushed for the reinstatement of our grant writer position, and I can tell you that this process alone is showing why that is essential, because she has done wonderful work and has been invaluable in helping us streamline the process too, and hearing her, are you sure you don't want to do that? Why do you want to do that? Okay, good job. And quick turnover on things too. So it really has been a team effort.
Yeah, my comments were directed not just at you, but to the team, but you have to keep it moving. And you can talk about things in a circle forever and never get anything done. But you guys have really produced a really very helpful product, and thank you, Kalia, as well. We sing your praises as often as we can. So thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions for the deputy mayor? Okay, Mr. Lesser.
Now, I just wanted to say, even though I had that recommendation that I too, you guys did a really good job on this document and a job well done. Spencer, I'm glad you listened to the two ladies and all their advice on this thing.
That's right.
To get it done properly.
Someone's got to keep me in line.
Yeah, special thanks to them. Okay, we'll move on now to agenda item number 7, our public comment section. We have several people signed up for public comment. I'll remind the people who approach the body that you have 4 minutes for your comments. The lights there will indicate your time. Green is when you start. Yellow gives you a caution that you have 1 minute left, and red means that your time has expired. So I can call the first person signed up to speak is Sarah Riley. Okay. And the young lady with you, Sarah? Maria. Maria? Okay.
Hi,
You can
good
start.
morning. My name is Sarah Riley, and this is Maria. We both thought a way how to make Topeka a better
Can you
place.
speak up?
You need to speak up.
Speak up and into the microphone.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Riley, and this is Maria. We both thought a way how to make Topeka a better place.
We thought about the lack of entertainment of our city. So what are we trying to solve? There are a lot of empty buildings, and there isn't really anywhere to go that's fun in here in Topeka, especially for kids and teenagers. How will we address this problem? There are many abandoned buildings that are just wasting some space. We thought about finding a big empty building. For example, the White Lake Mall is getting teared down, so we thought about using that building to remake a better one And our goal is to make this place fun for teenagers and kids as well.
Around how much money will we be needing? Since we want this place to be fun and we want to add an arcade, basketball court, outside pool, food courts, inside stores, and many more, in total it would be around $10 million. How do we want to make this place safe? We want to make this building friendly for kids and teenagers. Something we want to add are quick bag inspections to make sure everyone is safe. Parents are always welcome as well, but overall we want everyone to be safe and enjoy.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I know it can be very nerve-wracking to come up here and visit and speak, But I appreciate you taking the courage to come to the council and present what you did for us right now and to save the city. Was this part of the McEachran School or French Middle School?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. You know, it takes a lot of courage to do that. I know I went out there to that, and Deputy Mayor was there, and Councilwoman Hiller was there. I mean, there's so many good ideas that they shared out there. It's encouraging to see that they follow up. I've even had a couple of requests for some of the students to participate and come to my office and follow up on their suggestions that I talked with them about. So again, compliments to the school for what they do, and my compliments to all the students who participated in that. Next, I have Becca Spielman. Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, there we go. Mayor Padilla and governing body. My name is Becca Spielman, and I am the program director for YWCA Northeast Kansas's Center for Safety and Empowerment. We are located here in Topeka, as you may know. At the Center for Safety and Empowerment, we serve victims and survivors of all genders who experience domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. Our service area covers Shawnee, Brown, Jackson, and Wabaunsee counties. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all during the public comment section of tonight's meeting. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and 1 in every 2 gender non-binary or trans-identified individual will experience or has experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetimes. Studies have shown that between 22 and 57% of all homeless women report that domestic violence was the immediate cause of their homelessness. And 38% of all domestic violence victims become homeless at some point in their lifetime. Given these statistics alone, I believe that it is our responsibility as leaders within the community who are dedicated to preventing and solving homelessness in Topeka to increase emergency housing options for victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. Therefore, I am speaking in support of allocating the home funds to YWCA Northeast Kansas to purchase property which will be used to increase emergency shelter beds for these victims. In comparison to the other communities in Northeast Kansas, we have 19 emergency shelter beds. In Kansas City, Kansas, however, there are 38 emergency shelter beds for these victims. And in Lawrence, there are 28 emergency shelter beds in one shelter and 16 beds in another shelter. So we are certainly not set up to be conducive to support the needs of the folks within our community. And we have to make difficult decisions at YWCA Northeast Kansas to limit the amount of time that people can stay at our shelter, because for us, we can only house folks for about 30 days, whereas those agencies allow us to house for, allow them to house for 90 days. So by supporting this request, we have an opportunity to rally around victims and survivors and let them know they are worth the investment.
Would you like a few more minutes to finish?
Oh, I can finish my statement if you want me to.
Okay.
By supporting this request, we have an opportunity as a community to rally around victims and survivors, let them know they are heard, they are believed, they are cared about, and they are worth this investment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we have Latasha Jackson.
Hello, my bad for that. I wanted to come and speak because
Would you speak up, please?
I wanted to speak because I had started my own business, and it's very difficult for me to be able to get the things done that I need done for my business when I go to the places that I need to go to, and they're not responding. And being homeless for 5 years and trying to figure out housing and going over and over to these different places and people tell me they don't know what they can do to help me is very discouraging for anybody that needs help. And to me, it's very unfair when nobody can tell you, but they're running everything. And I really feel that 501 needs to be redone, in my opinion. There's a lot of things wrong within this community that should be fixed. You can't push people around that are homeless and then expect them to be okay. Tear their homes down when they build them up, that's wrong. And if nobody sees that as being wrong, then there's something seriously going on that shouldn't be. But I think all this stuff needs to be addressed. 501 district needs, these housing people, organizations, they need to read and understand what they're signing up for, because I don't think they understand it. Because if I go in there and ask them about it and they tell me they don't know what to do, there's something wrong with that when they're the ones running the program. And to prevent homelessness, you have to allow a person a chance. You're not going to allow them a chance, then why give them vouchers? Because I've been denied housing several times and they won't extend my voucher. But I have to re-sign up again. I'm going through this over and over and over again. It's unfair to me. It's trying to get my family put back together. And I've been to battered women's. I've been everywhere. They're not helping. Not me, anyway. And to me, that's unfair. The funding needs to be put somewhere. Those people that need help, somebody should sit down and work with them. They're not doing it at Vallejo. They're not doing it anywhere else. They're not sitting down, taking the time to know these people. And if they sit down and take time to know them, it will be a lot better for everybody. Because you can't just leave them out there. They're addicted. I'm an addict. Everybody's an addict. Everybody has their own problems. But it's not okay to nitpick at certain people and then let others get away with it. The police force is out of control with me. These property people that are running like Cornerstone, Housing Authority, I go in there to address them with my issues. They get upset with me. They call the police and ban me off the property. And it's unfair to me when I'm supposed to be in these places to get housing. I'm not going in there being rude. I'm asking questions like I'm supposed to. And I don't get none of the answers that I need. There's never a female officer that comes. It's always males that are searching me. That's a violation of my rights as a woman. They talk very rudely to me. They throw my things around. They terrorize everything I have. I'm one person. I'm a woman. And I deserve better. They've taken things from me, destroyed everything I had. And I feel like it really needs to be addressed. I don't know who's running it, but it needs to be, all these organizations need to come together. Can't have HUD here, HUD here, HUD here, HUD here, and nobody on the same page. Everybody has their own set of rules for HUD, but HUD has their set of rules that nobody's following. And that's very unfair. If I have to follow rules, so does everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person I have signed up is Michelle Reeves. Is it Reeves or Revis?
Reeves.
Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity. 4 years ago, I too was one of the chronically homeless here in Topeka. But thanks to Dr. Burton's program, the homeless storage shelter, the street syndicate program, I have acquired housing. I've maintained my housing since I got my first voucher, March. Like I said, almost 3.5 years ago is when I first got my home. And because of this opportunity to be able to have a housing, I've gotten my daughter back from KDC. I've got the release of custody of her. I mean, she's officially my daughter back. I've been able to maintain a house and get my family back together and get my needs met that normally I wouldn't have. I've been her before, though, and I know the struggle. I've been to the Battered Women's Task Force, into from domestic violence as well. But if it wasn't for this program, I probably wouldn't be here today because of it, because this is something that is a very good program, and it's an opportunity that most of us in the community don't have the money or don't have the ability to, to be able to be connected with, certain services. And this program is very, very important, and it does work, because I'm living proof that this program does work, and it will help our community and the homelessness population that we have. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Burton, you're signed up as well?
Yes, sir. I'd like to go last, but I'm probably not allowed to change the order.
I'm just going down the list.
I understand. If you'll let me pass these out before you start my time. Take some over there for me. Share some information with you I'll get to in just a minute. Thank you again, Mayor, City Manager, City Council. I've been here to talk to you guys many times. I've been here to praise you guys as I did earlier. I've been here to shame you guys. I've been here to inform you guys. But today I'm here to talk to the camera. I'm here to talk to your constituents. I think your constituents need to hear exactly what happened. As they will here in a minute from some people that were down at Tent City. But the city manager and the city council, the most powerful people in this community, have taken it upon themselves to push around the homeless in our community, the least powerful. And I think your constituents need to know that, particularly since we're talking about an upcoming election in which city manager is very important. I know some of you probably out there are old enough to remember the 60s. I know I am. And I'm old enough to remember what happened in the 60s. I'm old enough to remember the dogs. I'm old enough to remember the fire hoses. I'm old enough to remember my dad talking to me about Bull Connor and about how evil Bull Connor was, going around violating people's civil rights. They simply wanted to protest. They simply wanted access to the franchise. And they had dogs sicked on them, hoses sicked on them. Now you got a population in your community that wants to exercise simply the right to have private property without unreasonable search and seizure. I believe that's the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, something like that. I'm not quite sure, but I believe that's right. And they have a right to that. Unfortunately, the city doesn't seem to recognize that. Look, guys, you came down there in the name of your city to the homeless encampments, not with dogs and fire hoses, but with bulldozers and dump trucks. And you bulldozed the whole camp. You were obligated by court decisions to preserve certain property. Also, you're obligated by the policy of which the city manager wrote and enacted himself, maybe with or without the consent of the city council. But that policy also required the preservation of property, including tents and sleeping bags and tools and things like that, none of which were preserved, not a single item. And you can ask any of the 20 people in that encampment. They lost bicycles, they lost generators, they lost all their tents, they lost their structures, they lost their lives. Not only that, but then you dug a 1-foot hole and left them in mud in a 1-foot hole, about 200 yards long and about 100 yards wide. They lost everything they had. What was your option? Preserve it on the levee, right? I'd like you to take your stuff out of your house and set it on the levee for about 3 or 4 days and see what's left when you come back. What did you expect them to do? You guys did a terrible thing. You violated their civil rights. You confused the time of notice. You didn't preserve property as required by courts and your own policy. Your reclamation time should be 60 days, not 30. Imagine getting a bike and moving your house from place to place in 30 days. Homeless outreach workers should be present from start to finish. They ought to be able to come down and offer affordable housing, offer alternative housing as in Kansas City. Or you ought not to bulldoze their camps. But you know what? The thing that's really frustrating is 3 years ago, you guys knew what you did. You knew you did it right. You went down with rakes and shovels. You bought trash bags, and you put dumpsters. You brought porta potties, and you cleaned up their camp in a civil and peaceful way. I'm telling you, you can go the way, but you can go the way. You guys are welcome to go the way of Bull Connor and Mr. Cochran, and you're welcome to go the way of civil liberty and civility. What side of history do you all want to be on? Thank you for your time, and I do have to apologize for my tone, but if you'd been down to those encampments, you'd be upset too.
Thank you. Diana Bloom, is she present? Diana Bloom.
You'll have to bear with me. I don't do this, and I'm a nervous wreck. Thank you for listening to me. I'm here. Let me breathe a couple times. I'm here to talk to you about possibly getting water, trash bags, trash recycle bins, and porta potty to these homeless people. We are talking about human beings that did not choose to be living on the streets. I'm sure something very tragic happened to them, and that is why they're homeless. Let's maybe talk about water first. Our bodies need water just to survive. I could stand here and tell you everything we all know about that, how water carries nutrition and oxygen to our cells, lubricates joints, and helps our kidney and liver by flushing out waste. But these are people. These are human beings. I've talked to people, and they take these 2-liter pop bottles, and they go, and that is how they get their water. Can you imagine how many you would have to take and fill up to get the water you guys just use in one day? And then that's heavier when they fill it up. That is how they get their waters. And then let's talk about trash and recycling. These people would just love to have a bag that they could put their trash in and then a place to put it. And then we haven't even done that. They've tried years ago. You guys did that, and it worked fabulous for them. These people, they just want to clean the place around. And when I drive over the river and I look down, I don't mind seeing tents, but I don't want to see trash, and these people want to clean their place. Give them a choice. Give them a choice. And then do I have to talk about porta potties? Come on, you guys. They're human beings. They need that. I hope tonight, when you go home, you'll think about how precious that water is, that you can actually brush your teeth at night, and how precious it is to actually have a toilet, and then a toilet in a private room. Come on. And how precious it is just to be able to throw something in a trash can. Just to be able to do that. Come on, you guys. These people aren't asking for much. They're human beings. That could be one of your child. That could be one of your grandchildren. That could be your best friend's child. Come on. It's only a minute before it could happen to somebody you guys know. Thank you. Thank you for...
Thank you, ma'am. The last person I have signed up is Kenneth Saffer.
I'd be one of them that lost stuff down at the river. You guys didn't go through no camps. You didn't assess nothing. I sat there and lost them, shoved everything into a pile and loaded it in dump trucks. I lost generators. I lost oxygen cylinder tanks. I lost tools. I lost clothing. Everything. And then you left the mud hole. Every time it rains, there's 6, 7 inches of water. Right by where I stay right now. Because you guys don't care. And I ain't gonna get none of my property back, none of it. It was all a lie, every bit of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a quick wrap up, I appreciate citizens taking part of this. Very important.
People signed up.
Not on my list. If the governing body would not object, I'll allow someone who didn't have the opportunity to sign up and get on this list to come forward. Would you come forward, ma'am, and give us your name, identify yourself?
Thank you, double thank you for allowing me to come up, even though I wasn't on the list.
Would you identify yourself, please?
Crystal Shepherd.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Shepherd.
So thank you for the invitation and the interest in the matter. My name is Crystal Shepherd, and I have been a resident at the river, as you say, for a couple of years now. One of the things I wanted to make sure that I got across to people is that it's not just a happenstance of people with tents down there. It is definitely a community of people that has been naturally established a hierarchy of order within the people, which means that we take care of the least of these. I have chosen to live this in this way, as there are two different kinds of freedom: freedom from and freedom to. Okay, so I chose freedom from what you guys would call your natural forms of success and means to get that, and freedom to dictate that myself. And with that being said, I've owned a business, I have a master's degree, and I choose to live this way as I said, to exercise my freedom to do so. I would like to definitely make sure you understand that we know we are dysfunctional people functioning together down there at the river. And by dysfunctional, I mean socially, not so much cognitively or emotionally. It would be more sometimes just social things get to be such a way. Ken and other people that I know that live down at the river are very skilled, experienced professionals in the ways of what they have done. And a lot of us are educated as well. And so it's not so much, you know, we, like I said, a naturally occurring hierarchy where we take care of each other. And that is where I feel I'm definitely most fit. I am just as important now as I was when I owned my business. And I'm just as important now to the people that I work with every day as I was when I was a therapist. And so I find that, you know, just want to make sure that that comes across clear. I also want to make sure we know that we have the acknowledgement of neglectful on our disposal, proper disposal and specs of what is allowed to be as far as permanent housing goes. I know that there's been a need. People don't really come together until there's a need, you know, and I've been trying to rally this for a little bit, but with the destruction of our friends' homes and watching that happen, you know, we definitely see a need of a I guess, proper disposal, as you would, to make sure, and we've already started to hold each other accountable for that, as I went to someone's camp just last night and helped him move some stuff to get it out of the driveway, of the site that people can see. So we appreciate the accountability on that matter. Moving forward, we'd like to, we, as in the organized, union of river residents, would like to make sure that there's avenues of communication, that we would get someone, you know, formal representation from us down at the river, that we would be able to have, you know, more of a notice of issues that are developing or ordinances that, you know, could affect our happenings. So, and then conclusion, we want to save the trees. All of us were very, very upset about seeing the destruction of the trees and the environment around it. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. As I was saying before I was interrupted, I'd like to thank the people who came forward during public comment to take advantage of their opportunity to speak to the governing body. That concludes our public comment section, and we'll move on to announcements. Madam Clerk.
For the June 14th preliminary agenda, we have one proclamation, 2 appointments. We'll have 3 presentations. On the consent agenda, there will be 2 noise exceptions. We will also have an ordinance that will remove the provisions for prohibiting bicycling on the sidewalk on Northeast Morris Street down in Nodo. Action items include a resolution in Sherwood Park subdivision to increase the project budget by $77,000 for a street improvement project. We have approval of the 2021 amended consolidated action plan. We have a resolution for Midland Care IRBs for transfer of property, and then we have the Policy and Finance Committee ARPA item.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. We got some good events going on this weekend here in the city. We've got the Juneteenth parade on Saturday. We got Tap That Topeka going on as well. And then I want to draw your attention to be proactive. 4th of July is coming up, and we always have a lot of questions on fireworks and all that good stuff. So we have generated a couple PSAs by the police and fire chief, which present very good information. And so I would encourage everybody to take a look at those. Our communications department and Channel 4 did an excellent job of producing those. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on. Well, Mr. Kell stepped out. He would have been first up. We'll move on to Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to go ahead and share a poem that I have found very contemplative in the time since the Uvalde shooting, since the Uvalde massacre. It has been a really, really tough time for people to reflect on that, to think about how somebody was driven to do something like that, and to think about the lives lost. And so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time tonight kind of meditating on that. And I would like to read this poem by Amanda Gorman, Hymn for the Hurting. Everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage, even as our children cannot be children, cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive, and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days, while at the same time, blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try. Thus, while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed rights to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. May we think everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange. But only when everything hurts, may everything change. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Kell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank those young ladies that came in and spoke. It's a great thing when our school-age students come out and want to participate and want to make things better. And that kind of goes to the point of what's happened in Texas, happened in other places, in other schools. And it's a subject that I've thought about a long time because having my children in school, my wife being a teacher, that thought's always going through my head. And there's something that we as society need to do to make our schools safe for the students, for the staff. And everyone has a plan for safety, and everyone thinks their plan is the best. I've gone to several safety seminars on this, and they contradict each other all the time. But it goes back to the ownership of weapons. And it actually made me think, I'm not pro-gun, I'm not anti-gun. But I actually just thought of something. I have a gun I received from my grandfather. There's no paperwork on it. No one knows I own this gun. And it's a little scary that anyone can just randomly pass it along to another person, and there's nothing to protect our students and take the safety measures to make sure that the people that need the mental health, that need the support, that need the outlet to protect our students. Like I said, this is something for years has been on my mind, and something I've talked to my daughters about very much, and things I've heard about, and it just seems like we can't get on consensus on this, and it's something we need to look at very deeply because, like, this is not even our schools, it's our supermarkets, it's our churches, and And we as a society need to talk about this, and when I say talk, have a reasonable conversation where you have back and forth. Mr. Siebert, the giver of Invocation, he's a gentleman that I've known for several years, and we have great conversations, and there's several topics we do not agree upon. But every single time, it's a civil conversation that we have. We're friends before and we're friends after, and that's the kind of conversation I think we need to have as a society, that we talk about this and come to a solution of some kind to help protect our students so they don't feel like they're in prison when they go to school. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Dober.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly following on the comments of the two council persons before me, we have a great opportunity. Tough to know what you can do, but we have an opportunity in front of us, and thanks to the great work done by the committee on the ARPA funding, I, for one, am going to look at every application that deals with mental health. That's going to be foremost on my list. I think this is a perfect time to be able to make a difference in this community from the mental health aspect. And I know there's lots of other good causes, hunger, homelessness, housing, but right now we need to address mental health. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Kudos to Councilmember Emerson. I believe it's 2 a.m. or so where he is, so good job, commitment, good work. Just two quick things. It was fun and nice to see Sarah and Maria up here. As the mayor mentioned, several of us went to the Save Our City event at the best middle school in Topeka. I still don't know why they haven't put up my plaque. Spencer Duncan went here, but maybe someday. But I was a French, that's right, it is in the principal's office, that's right. But I was a French Falcon, so extra proud to see some French Falcons show up here tonight and give their presentation. But that was a great event, and nice to see a little spillover here. My last one is just a reminder to the world that in Friday at noon is the filing deadline if you want to run for the Kansas House. So, if you thought, gee, I can do just as whatever of a job as those folks up there, regardless of what party you are, check it out, go down there, file your fee at noon, and you can run for the Kansas House. So take a look, and if nothing else, check your voter registration to make sure you can register to vote, because that deadline will be fast approaching also. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Lesser?
Oh, there he is. Councilman Lesser, sorry.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I had everybody in the room.
Couple of things. One, I think most of you know that I'm involved in Topeka United, a movement, and we do have the second annual Mosaic Partner Pairs program now well underway with 62 participants. It's an April to December program, so stay tuned. Topeka United also does some things on the side, and because the river is high and fast, our Call River float that was scheduled for Saturday the 4th has been postponed to Saturday, July 23rd. So anybody who didn't get signed up who still wants to float the Call, please keep it in mind. Easy to find. I also went this weekend, someone mentioned Juneteenth. It started last weekend. There was a walk around the Capitol on Monday. There's a parade this weekend, and then the big Juneteenth festival at Hillcrest Park on the 18th, the weekend of the 18th. And I'm not mentioning everything. What I attended was I went to their Miss Juneteenth beauty pageant on Saturday night. And I just want to tell everybody it was just as good as you'd see anywhere. There were 7 young ladies competing. The talent, the recitations that they needed to give, and the evening gowns it was stunning and well done. And so our young lady will go forward as Miss Juneteenth Kansas at this point to the national competition. A little closer to home in the council business, I just wanted to mention, I think all of you on the council have gotten some invitations already. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala and I have been leading the Change Our Culture of Property Maintenance Initiative. That's a two-column initiative. One is policy and procedures. The other is action. Both of those are in motion. Our consultant, Karen Black, who is working on the policy and procedures, is due to arrive here on Monday. There will be, you all will get the final schedule of events when it comes out, that things are still being booked. A lot of staff that's here are involved. We encourage you to come to as much as you can. This may be her only visit live to Topeka. She has already interviewed a whole variety of people on the legal and court side, on the nonprofit housing side, on code compliance and fire and forestry, all remotely. This will be a chance for her to meet all of us up front, and there will be a public engagement session on Wednesday evening, the 16th. So thanks for everybody who's already committed on that, and watch for more information. Correspondingly, our action initiative has started. Our mowing contract deadline for our grassroots-based mowing contract or contracts, so that there is an affordable alternative for anybody in each neighborhood, is we should hear more about soon, and we'll be kicking in for the volunteer recruitment initiatives as well. So watch on the agenda. Karen Black, you'll see an item on next week's agenda, and that is simply an opportunity for all of you to get a chance to meet her, and she will do a brief update on her progress. Also, our chair for the Police and Community Committee is not here this evening either, but there's a preliminary draft out after 18 months of work, and we're meeting again this Friday with the idea to go into public comment session the following Friday, so please do send in to Chair Ortiz any thoughts that you have on that preliminary draft. We're eager to have it well vetted before it goes to public. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
Nothing tonight or this morning, Mayor.
You stayed up all that time for nothing. Nice drapes you have in the background there.
When in England.
Yeah. I'd like to mention a program that's going on right now. I had the opportunity to go visit at the fire department today with Chief Phillips and 19 young women involved in Camp Courageous. These are young ladies in high school who are considering fire service as a career. This program's gone on at least for another previous year that I'm aware of, but I was really impressed with the enthusiasm that I saw of these young ladies that are participating. They even went through a quick drill that got them out of their seats and had them jumping into their turnout gear just to give them an idea of what it's like to be in fire service. What also impressed me is the chief's staff, the captain there. She was really good at reaching out and bringing other departments to Topeka to help in the training, and brought, I think, Chief, maybe was it 9 or 10 total instructors that we have, all female instructors?
Today, throughout the week, I think there's approximately 17 female firefighters from our department and other departments around the area who will serve as instructors.
No, that's right. Repeating what the chief said, that throughout the week, through the training, they'll get to approximately 17 instructors that will, all female instructors who will be teaching these young ladies. And I think it's commendable that they've been able to reach out and do that and collaborate with Manhattan. I think it was Lawrence, you had a couple, and some other companies. I just think it shows our willingness to reach out and follow up on kind of the thing that we really got when we were down visiting in that city-to-city trip of regionalism, knowing that we can help out, have mutual aid to other cities, and benefit from their experience. But it was a pleasure. They're going to have a graduation this Friday. Am I correct, Chief? 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Okay, I got to get my glasses on. But again, I just think it's really nice to see that many females are interested in the fire service, because there was a time that they were pretty scarce in the fire service. So my congratulations to the chief and the training that's going on right now. And just to follow up on some of the comments that Councilwoman Nager expressed about our condition in this country, and Councilman Kell, people ask themselves, they wring their hands and wonder, what can we do? We keep asking for change, keep asking for change. People are the change. Registering to vote and making that vote heard is how change will come around. Because if people who are serving now don't hear your voices, it's important for you to express that frustration at the voting poll. And registration is coming up. I think it's July 17th or 12th is the deadline. So it's ahead of the time that we need to get there and vote and express our wishes to all of our elected officials. It's important for us to make that voice heard with the vote. So I encourage you all to do that. That's all I have to add, and we'll move on now to a need for 2 executive sessions. If the city attorney would read, please.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 25 minutes for consultation with the city attorney to discuss attorney-client privilege matters regarding specific legal advice regarding a contract and associated liability issues as justified by KSA 754319B2. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff are requested to assist the governing body in its deliberations: interim city manager Cochran, city attorney Stanley, and other staff as the interim city manager may deem necessary.
Okay, we've heard the motion, the need for executive session. I entertain a motion. Moved by Councilman Kell, the second. Councilman Nager. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We will recess into executive session. We'll take a 10-minute break before we start our deliberations. Thank you. Okay. We have reconvened in the meeting and are now back in open session with no action being taken by the governing body during the executive session. There is a need for a second session if the city attorney would read.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations relating to healthcare negotiations as authorized by KSA 754319B3. The following staff may be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberation: interim city manager Cochran and other staff he deems necessary.
We've heard the need for a second executive session. Entertain a motion. A motion by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Kell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will now go into executive session immediately. No recess. We're live now.
Well, it didn't bother me, so.
We have now reconvened the meeting and are back in open session with no action being taken by the governing body during the executive session. If there is no further business appearing before the governing body, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.